Hello folks, welcome to the Self-Love Sessions. So today I'm going to talk about 5 ways that you can practice non-violence or kindness in daily life. So non-violence is absolutely the essential or the core of the yogic tradition. In yoga we call this AHIMSA. So it's something that we practice on the mat, and it's something that we use as an ethic, a conduct of living in daily life as well, so that we can live with more compassion towards ourselves and compassion towards the rest of the planet as well. So AHIMSA is essentially yoga. It is the practice of yoga. It's the core of any yogic tradition, is to come back to compassion. Now I'm going to give you 5 ways that you can do that in daily life, and these ways are going to really help boost your self-confidence, and they're going to really help boost how you feel about yourself, and they're going to help boost coming back to some deep sense of self-acceptance as well. So stay tuned if this sounds like your bag. Okay, so the first way to practice AHIMSA, non-violence or kindness, compassion towards yourself, is to speak kindly to yourself. Now this sounds really simple, and it sounds like something that we're always taught, obviously, and we know because we're human beings and we're compassionate human beings. We know we're not meant to be speaking badly towards ourselves, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't, okay? And it's something that we can learn and know, but are we actually practicing it? So this is the number one thing to do, to come back to being kind and non-violent towards yourself, is to speak kindly to yourself. Notice the words that you're using to describe yourself. Notice the words that you're using when you look in the mirror. Notice the words that you're using when you're working, or when you're in a little chat with your friends, or when you're teaching, or when you're doing your job, or whatever it is that you're doing. Notice the words that you are speaking about yourself. Now I have to do this on a regular basis. It's a practice, it's not a perfect. Coming to a sense of understanding how you're speaking to yourself is something that you have to do very, very regularly. It's like a full-time job, and it really helps you to attune yourself to a deeper sense of awareness, a deeper sense of self-inquiry. I personally think it's one of the most profound and deepest teachings on the planet, is to recognise the way in which you are speaking to yourself. Now, a way in which to do this is to first of all come to the awareness of what you're actually saying. So say you're looking in the mirror and you're doing whatever you're doing in the mirror in the morning, and you're noticing that your thought pattern is extremely negative towards yourself, like, oh, I don't like that, or I don't like this about myself, and I won't fit in here, or I don't like how my hair is, or this just looks disgusting, I can't believe these bags underneath my eyes. Notice the words that you're actually formulating. Notice the narrative that you're telling yourself, because essentially this narrative is just a repetitive behavioural pattern, a repetitive belief system that we've held within ourselves over many, many, many years, and the subconscious believed it. Hopefully you were joking, but the subconscious doesn't know when you're joking, so the subconscious believes everything that you tell it. And if you are telling it the same story over and over again, I'm not good enough, I don't like this about myself, I don't like that about myself, I wish I could change that, and I wish I could change that. If you're saying those things on repeat throughout your life, that becomes your character. That is essentially what you believe about yourself, okay? I used to believe about myself that I didn't like the way that I looked, like physically, because I had body dysmorphia. And so I've had to do a lot of work around that. I've had to do a lot of work around AHIMSA. And I have done, and now it's part of my daily routine, and I don't speak to myself for very long in that way anymore. Or if I do, I notice it quickly and I quickly change it, because it's very, very, very detrimental, and it can lead to lots of different terrible decisions in your day going forward. So AHIMSA is really, really important. How you're speaking to yourself and how you can shift that way of speaking quickly. So all you have to do when it comes to a little tool is recognise when you're speaking to yourself in a detrimental, unkind and even bullying way. Notice it, become aware of it. That's the first thing that you need to do. And then once you've become aware of it, once something has come into your awareness, you can shift that pattern, that strange pattern that you've been telling yourself throughout your life. But you have to come to awareness before you can shift it. So come to awareness. You're in the mirror, you've noticed you're not being very kind to yourself, or you're at work and you've noticed that you're beating yourself up about the way that you're working. Once you've noticed it, shift it. Change the way in which you're talking to yourself. So you might do something like this. I do this out loud. Polly, that was not very kind. You're going down the route of bullying yourself again. And the things that happened when you bullied yourself were not very productive, were they? So I'll have a little bit of a stern word with myself, and that's called tough love, right? We've all heard of that. It's not kind how you're treating yourself. Switch it up, Paul. You know how to do it. And then I'll say, no, I know this is not the case. It's just something that my subconscious believed from the past. I have the power to change my subconscious because I am in control of how I want to live my life and how I want to treat myself. That's my personal choice. So I'm going to try and change the rhythm of behaviour. I'm going to try and change the beliefs that I thought about myself for such a very long time, and I'm going to rewrite the future because that's within my power. So I quickly switch it up. No, that's a lie. I'm not going to believe those patterns of behaviour. I feel good about myself. I've got this that's good about myself and this that's good about myself, and now I'm going to go out there and tell other people how good they are as well. Because you can't give compassion to the best of your ability if you're not having compassion towards yourself, because everything is a reflection of oneself. The beauty you see in somebody else is the beauty you feel within yourself, because everything is connected in one continuum, in infinity. So what you see in somebody else is also what reflects what's going on inside yourself. So you'll probably start to notice the more kind you are to yourself inside, and the more you start to become aware of how you're speaking to yourself from the inside, then you will start to feel kinder towards other people on the outside. And it's just a mirror, it's a reflection of yourself. So essentially, if you're not being kind to yourself, you're also not being kind to somebody else along the line. Okay, so that's the first point, the first way in which to practice non-violence in daily life. The second thing you can do is start to practice speaking kindly about others and what words are coming out of your mouth about other people. Now, this can sometimes be a bit challenging as well. Sure. Okay, but when we start to get really bogged down in not speaking very kindly towards other people, then it can become a very disconnected way of understanding what compassion is. So I'm going to give a little example. Say your mind is going down a little rabbit hole of saying something negatively about somebody or something or a group of people or whatever. Yeah, we all do it. The mind likes to do it. It's as simple as that. But if we start to latch ourselves onto that negative gossip circle, I'm going to call it, in the mind, then we become part of it. We are part of the gossip circle. Okay, let's think about a physical gossip circle, right? School, for example. You are in a little group of friends at school. So-and-so said this and so-and-so said that, and I don't really like her because she said this and she did that, and then everybody's involved in it, right? And it's not very nice, it's not very kind about that other person. And sometimes it happens, sure, right? But when you take yourself out of that circle and watch it from a bird's eye perspective, from a little bit of a third person perspective, then you would probably see as an onlooker that that little circle, that little gossip circle, was not speaking very kindly of others, right? But the same thing can happen in your mind. Let's think about the mind and the thoughts as that little gossip circle. Okay, so the mind and the thoughts might be speaking not very nice about somebody else, just like that gossip circle at school. But if you take yourself away and detach yourself slightly from your thoughts and just watch the little gossip circle and how it sounds so negative and unkind towards this specific person or whatever it is, then you have detached yourself from your thoughts. You've come from a watchman's perspective, you've come from an observer's perspective, and then you can see more clearly what's going on in that little gossip circle, yeah? And you can see that the words are unkind. When you're really involved in it, you're just in it, aren't you? You're in a continuum of it. You can't see the wood for the trees. You can't see clear, because this is very, very confusing. And when you're involved in something, you're in that energy, right? Same as this little gossip circle at school. So to speak more kindly to others, it starts with taking yourself back from the unkindness and watching it from a third person's perspective. Now, you'll have noticed this from a physical point of view. When you watch somebody else speak unkindly towards somebody in a little gossip circle, for example, if you are the onlooker of that gossip circle and you weren't part of it in the first place, you might go, "Wow, they're not being very kind." Yeah? And so you can see it. And then just think about exactly the same thing with the thoughts. Imagine the thoughts of those people in that little gossip circle, and you, as your higher self, the watchman, are just observing those thoughts instead. The thoughts are there and you're here. And you go, that doesn't seem very kind. So you have to step back from the circle to observe it, to be able to come from a much more level-headed perspective and to be able to address how you are thinking and how you are speaking, what words you're forming about another person. And are they kind? And how can we work with that a little bit more? How can we come back to a bit more compassion, a bit more maybe forgiveness, or whatever it is that needs to be worked on? At least we can see where it needs to be worked. Okay, so that's the second tip, to practice a bit more AHIMSA in your daily life and come back to non-violence. The third tip is honouring your and respecting and accepting your limitations. Now, we always talk about limitations, don't we, as something that we need to move past, and, not having limitations in the mind, not sort of like boxing yourself off and keeping yourself really rigid, and opening the mind to limitless opportunity. I'm not speaking about that as such. What I'm speaking about is, if we have a limitation in the body, every single one of us does, right? We store things in the nervous system, we store stuff in the glands, in the muscles, in our memory, in our mind. We store stuff in the tissues, in the organs, absolutely everywhere. In our energy centres, in our energy field. We store stuff. We store us. We're basically wardrobes, right? So we have restrictions in many areas of the body, and everybody does. And it's about honouring those restrictions. Not restrictions as such, but limitations, honouring and accepting them so that we are not hurting ourselves. Now, this is a really strong point in AHIMSA. In yoga, I'm going to refer to the yoga practice, the first thing I think about when I'm coming into my Kundalini practice for myself, and the first thing I like to teach my students, is AHIMSA. It is at the core of the yoga practice. So how are you treating yourself on the mat? Are you slipping into a big deep hip opener like the splits, for example, and splitting your hamstring because your ego wanted to do it, but actually you knew that you were really tight in that area and it wasn't actually serving you to move any further than your edge at that point? Then have you just followed the ego's really short-term quick fix, which is get into the splits because I need to be seen in this way, instead of actually respecting and honouring that limitation and being kind to yourself instead, and saying, I'm going to stay here today because it's more sustainable for my body to hold here, and then maybe with time I might move a little deeper or not. Doesn't really matter, right? So a good way to practice AHIMSA is to respect your limitations when it comes to the physical body, and also when it comes to some other things as well, when it comes to what we feel that we can do maybe in daily life. I'm going to maybe use an example of a list of jobs. Yeah, you write down 1,000 jobs to do in the day and expect yourself to be able to accomplish all of those jobs. And really, we only have a certain capacity, right? We've only got 2 hands and 1 brain, and in this heat sometimes I don't even have any brain. We can only do what we can do in that day, yeah? So are we respecting our limitations? Or are we giving ourselves too much to think about so that we actually can't practice kindness, and that we actually can do our own self-care because we're giving ourselves too many jobs to do? Okay, so that is another way of practicing kindness, is to respect, accept, and honour any limitations that are there. Okay, the next thing is finding an equanimous mindset when it comes to difference in opinion. Okay, so this is something that is cropping up much more, I think, in the modern day world, in the information world, where we can see everything that everybody's doing and there's loads of different opinions flying around, and that's cool. But how can we find equanimity when it comes to different opinions? This is an important thing. And I'll tell you why I think it's important, because I found myself sort of like being on the internet, for example, or being out on the streets. I'm going to say the internet mainly. I'm going to say social media mainly. Being on the social media or the internet and going, oof, I just totally don't agree with that. And something might trigger me and actually make me feel a little bit like triggered, annoyed or angry because someone said something that's really bloody ridiculous in my point of view. And essentially that's just my point of view. It's just my truth. It's not, my truth isn't the only truth, right? And so what that can do, if you don't come to that with a space of finding some equanimity in that difference of opinion, it can actually tear up your day. It can actually make you feel really negative, and it can start to sort of reflect on the way in which you are moving through life. And this is not beneficial at all. It's not kind. It doesn't allow you to come back to AHIMSA, and it sets off a domino effect of violence towards yourself and towards that other person, because you start to go down that negative spiral of that wasn't right, I know why it wasn't right. You might get a little bit angry, and essentially that's not compassion, is it? It's not compassion, it's not kindness, and it's violent in some way, shape or form. So practicing equanimity when it comes to difference of opinion, and just thinking, okay, so that person might be thinking that because that's their experience of life, and why do I have to bring that into my hemisphere? Why do I have to let that affect me? They are allowed to think that. That is their opinion. It's probably supported by a lot of truth, and this is my opinion, and that's supported by a lot of truth. And how can I not let that opinion, or the difference in 2 opinions or loads of opinions, affect my peace, and essentially affect the peace that I'm then going to portray and mirror to other people in daily life? Okay, so finding some equanimity in the difference of opinion, now that we're living in a world where everybody is online, is a good way of practicing non-violence. And the last thing is to balance your energy, as in understand your energetic constitution and what it is that you need from a intuitive point of view. So, for example, say you are the sort of person like me who's go, and you don't often give yourself much time to rest. That's just part of my personality. Okay, and that's fine. You might be the opposite. You might be the sort of person who isn't very go, go, go. You might be the sort of person who likes to relax and move through life with a bit more freedom. And whatever it is, whatever your personality is, if you notice that you're doing things that are detrimental to your personality, like you're not balancing out your energy. For example, you're the go, 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 yang style personality, and you are being disrespectful towards your energy because you're just going, 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 and then you get depleted. Okay, and then you're flat, and then you have no energy at all. So how can you be kinder to yourself, practice non-violence, practice AHIMSA by understanding your energy, understanding what it is that balances you out and how to integrate that into your daily life. If you are a go, go, go person, you also know that you need the opposite end of the spectrum because the physical body is about balance. So how can you add something in there that's going to make your day much more balanced and therefore you'll be more kind towards yourself? So balancing out your energy or understanding how your personal energy works is another way of being kind to yourself because it allows you to have that balance throughout your daily life, which is essential for kindness. Otherwise you get very hectic in one direction and not in the other one, and then your heart isn't balanced. You don't feel like you're moving forward with peace and clarity and equanimity as well. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. That is 5 things you can add to your daily life to bring yourself to more kindness, AHIMSA and non-violence. Ciao!